Hi, everyone. A very warm welcome to the Boutique Hotels Crisis Guide to Travel. I'm Frances Karagian, founder and CEO of BLLA, the Boutique Lifestyle Leaders Association. We all dream of traveling again, and we will. Today's panelists are some of the top leaders in travel, and their agency networks work around the clock taking care of their leisure and business travelers. One thing is for sure, travel agents, and boutique hotels will make a strong comeback when the world opens up again. While there will be some fallout, BLLA is here committed to bringing you programs along the way. Ariella, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I feel like I've been saying hello a lot lately with all these webinars. I'm Ariella Karagian, partner and COO at BLLA and co-founder of Stay Boutique, also Fran's daughter. I just wanted to start off by going through questions because I know a lot of you are going to have lots of questions, and we welcome that. We want you to have a voice. Now, we do have questions we've already put together, and there is a lot of content to get through. So what we do ask of you is to officially ask a question in the portal, and if we don't get to them, we'll send it over to the panelists and we'll do a recap article on stay-boutique.com where your answers will get, your questions will get answered. Also, you can email us at info@blla.org as well. First and foremost, a little bit about who we are. BLLA, not only are we producing these webinars, but we're also the official association for the world's boutique lifestyle leaders. We are the original hub for supporting boutique and independent hotels since 2009, and our values are leadership, advocacy, and education. Now, Mom, why don't you tell them our mission statement?
As the official point of the industry, BLLA is dedicated to not only championing boutique lifestyle culture as it grows, but actively advancing it, evolving with consumer trends and extending our global network to include innovative hoteliers, entrepreneurs, vendors, and visionaries in food, fashion, fitness, beauty, and beyond.
Now, as you all know, we've been advocating for over a decade for boutique hotels, and to continue our efforts in doing this, we ask our audience to do three things. One, we have a YouTube page. These recordings are going on there. We have some more fun videos informing our audience about what's going on in boutique. So I sound like a vlogger, but hit that subscribe button on YouTube. You will get an email with the link to that. Also, we have a newsletter. It's all about information and news in the boutique community that goes out every Wednesday and every Sunday. Let us know if you want to be subscribed to that. And also the hashtag. We're trying to unite all the boutique hotels and the boutique lovers in the world and travel agents that love boutique hotels. So we ask you to use the hashtags Boutique Strong and hashtag Save Boutique Hotels. We are all in this together as a family. This picture here is our 10-year anniversary last year, where we gathered a lot of our members who've supported us since day one. And we just want to let you know that we're here for you. We're going to get through this together. You are not alone. And now for today's webinar, we have an amazing panel, the greatest leaders in travel. So first up, we have Jake Haupert. He's the co-founder of Transformational Travel Council. We have Anastasia Mann, who's the chairman and CEO of Corniche Travel. Alex Sharpe, the president and CEO of Signature Travel Network. Roger Block, the president of Travel Leaders Network. David Harris, the CEO of Ensemble Travel Group, and amazing moderator, Timothy O'Neill-Dune, principal of 7-7 Partners. Timothy, I'll give you the floor.
Well, you're right. This is a very stellar cast of experts and people who are in here. So greetings, everyone. And glad to see we're all behaving and staying at home. And of course, we're all being very careful with our mask and everything else. So can I ask you, Ariella, just put up some of the slides, just as a quick way to reference this. What I'd like to do is let people see who we are. This is worldwide flights from IATA that came out a couple of days ago that shows that flights are down by 80% by early April. However, the number is actually greater than that because that does not reflect the number of people who are flying. I just looked at some data from the ARC Corporation, who said that only 7% of tickets were on year compared to last year. And I looked at the TSA data, which says that we're now actually, the people getting on planes is less than 4% of what it was a year ago. So this is a very dramatic drop. We've never seen this, words like unprecedented, happen. Can you go to the next slide, please? But it's not just flights that are here. There is obviously a massive impact right across the industry. It doesn't really matter which way you stand. These numbers are staggering. We've never seen numbers like this. We're back to the same size as the industry just immediately post World War II. So we're not going to see this type of impact, I think, ever again. This is a unique moment in time. But as you can see from Oxford Economics here, these numbers, I think even these numbers could be light. And this is just for 2020. What does the future years look like? And we'll try and address that. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is where we're looking at how it's going to, what's the detail of this? And you have not just to think about, obviously, the lost spending, but there is the loss of jobs, which we'll come to in a second. And there is also a significant amount of lost tax revenue because the travel industry supports an incredible amount of the tax base. And next slide, please. Just look at the employment side of this. Next slide, please. There we go. These are employment losses. And we're looking at 1.8 million jobs lost. Right now, that number is about half that. We're going to get to this number pretty darn quickly. We already saw that in the US, the job losses number came out yesterday with another 5 million people filing for unemployment. And a lot of those people are in our industry. So it's not a pretty sight. So let's, one more slide, please. So before I go into the panel, this is the timeline model that I created for where I think we're going and what we think is the current timeline for what we get to. So I'm calling this the new normal. And I think a lot of people are starting to use that same word because we're not likely to return back to where we were before. We're currently at this, what I call stage 4. This is reset. And there's a lot of anger in this, and this is where you're seeing only essential travel. That is, only people who need to travel. They must go and take care of a sick relative, or they must go there and be in support of the rest, the crucial parts of the economy that have to exist. And we must use this time very carefully. So with that, I hope this gives you some sense. These slides, by the way, will be up and you'll be able to download them. And we'll try to put some information on the website along with the answers to your questions. So with that, I'd like to go to our panel. So here we are, this incredible panel. Some of us who've learned how to do nice Zoom backgrounds. Thank you, Alex. I like yours, it's pretty good there. Anastasia, that's your real office there, isn't it, Anastasia, there? So with this, first of all, welcome and thank you all for giving up time. I know this is a critical moment in our history. I know that everybody is got an incredible amount of things that they've got on their plate, particularly when you're thinking of, as Ariella put it, the boutique lifestyle. You have a lot of direct individual relationships that you want to take care of. And that's one of the things that matters. So let's just quickly go around the table and say, one answer, please, one set answer. How are you feeling? Let's start, Anastasia, with you. How are you feeling?
Like I should have a martini instead of a glass of water. I'm nervous. I'm very, very concerned. It's not about the industry ever coming back. It's about how long we can wait for it to come back. Good.
Alex, what about you?
Well, gosh, I'm feeling a little fancy today, Timothy, because I put on a dress shirt instead of a t-shirt and shorts. But really claustrophobic. You know, I'm anxious, anxious to get out there, anxious to visit with our members, anxious to visit our partners in the world. But we have to be safe, right? And so we sit here and plan, and sometimes we have a little too much time to do just that.
Let's hope we're going to use our time productively. David, one sentence, please.
Well, first of all, to address the attire situation that everybody seems so focused on, forever plaid here, I thought, drawing me back to New York some way, shape, or form. But the reality is everybody's in survival mode. It's a difficult time. And I think for me personally, and certainly anyone in business, whether it's these wonderful competitors on this call, or whether it's members and suppliers alike, it's about the need to focus on solutions right now. I think that is critically important, and not just to be accepting status quo, but rather focusing on what the solutions are to get us back to where we need to be.
Well, let's hope we can come up with some of those. Jake, you're a little bit different from the rest of us. You're kind of what I would say is the good part of us, the existential part we're talking about. How are you feeling?
Well, first, just let me acknowledge, I know this is a very challenging time for everybody, and I want to send peace and harmony and resilience to everyone listening. For me, I guess I'm feeling spacious. I feel like we've been given this incredible gift of time and space, and I've been using that to get in a rhythm and connect with family, and more importantly, in regard to my work is be innovative and be creative, really reimagine and try to look forward with hope.
Oh, that's a great word to use, reimagine, because if we think that there is a new normal, that's it. Roger, you're the guy who represents the biggest universe here. So you're the big guy on campus. We're looking to you for guidance as to what are the masses saying?
Thank you for having me on this great panel. I'll echo a couple of my colleagues. On the one hand, our members and our wholly owned operation, we're very, very nervous about the future as to when it's going to come back. No matter, there's a strong belief it will come back. The question is when and what steps do we have to take to survive in that meantime. On the other hand, I also balance that with cautious optimism, because I think we're starting to see people talking about the next phase. We're not, the conversation is not dominated by bunker mentality. It's not dominated by how many people had to go to the hospital. We're starting to talk about, okay, when we do lift this blanket, how is it going to work? What are we going to do? So I will admit it's a small crack, but I tend to be an optimist. Our members, when we talk to them, we're by and large, almost in terms of volume on a global basis, half corporate, half leisure. We are going to have to change what we do. And I think everyone recognizes that. And we're all trying to explore different avenues of what customers are going to do and how it's going to change. But I think we're starting to see the end.
Good. So I think this is part of the practical side of what we should be doing. I think we all have a responsibility to try and figure out two things. One is for our customers to give them that assurance that there is going to be a good way forward. That's number one. But number two is, what can we actually do as individuals from our organizations to help bring back the sense of some normalcy? So let me ask a couple more questions then here. If we do think about this, are we going to look at a U type of recovery, a V type of recovery, or something else? David, what do you think that the recovery is going to look like? And do you have a timeline for it? You've seen mine.
Well, yes, your timeline actually doesn't look too far off, Timothy. But I know that will sound negative to a lot of people on the call. But a couple of things that stand out for me. One is we absolutely must do more in terms of an industry to promote the value of our industry to consumers. So whether it's boutique hotels, whether it's cruises, whether it's airlines, whatever the case may be, we're at a point right now where consumers, while they are always starved for content and product, at this point, I would say it's more about a collaborative effort by everybody in the industry, all stakeholders. So everything from agencies to consortia to advisors to suppliers, associations, and even press to band together to collaborate to educate consumers about misperceptions in the industry and also to educate them on things that consumers need to know about. I mean, as a low-hanging fruit, simple example, most consumers probably don't know the difference between an online travel agency and a bricks and mortar. Or, certainly the consumers in terms of misperception have no idea right now what to believe when they hear media talk about or governments talk about a cruise ship being unsanitary. I mean, that's just one of the most ludicrous things that absolutely needs to be addressed. And there's not one cruise supplier partner who wouldn't be willing to talk about that. Boutique hotels, I think there's just tremendous opportunities for them in the short term, and I'm jumping ahead. I apologize for that. But realistically,
it's important, I think, David, that we can express this. Anastasia, you're very much focused. You're kind of at the actual coalface of the interface with the customer from your business, and you deal with a lot of the boutique hotels. What is the sense that you have now? What does the new normal look like for you and your clientele, not just from the stake of each part of your businesses, but also from your supplier side? What do you think that is?
I'm going to use
that's a three-part question. Regarding our clients, our customers, we're about 80% corporate and 20% leisure, and then we also have a separate company that's Anastasia's Africa for private custom safaris. So we're dealing with customers on many levels. The corporate clients, which are, of course, because of the volume, are bread and butter, regular business. That is an interesting aspect of our business because I think for boutique hotels, I think it's a good market coming back up because there's a lot of cutback on expenses and budgets and what kind of hotels people are going to stay in. The corporate clients are staying in touch and we're staying in touch with them. But think about it, there's so many global group travel that's being canceled, conferences and events being canceled. And at the end of the day, they're saving quite a bit of money on flights and on events. And there's a lot of reluctance from the group side of the corporate business to postpone events. There's a lot of just straight canceling of events. From the vendor side, the vendors that we work with, the hoteliers, the airlines, the cruise lines, they've been incredible staying in touch with us. They're constantly in touch. They're communicating individually, with the sales reps, with us. It's just a remarkable situation because literally in the hotel business, the furloughs, which actually turned out to be layoffs, are vast. I know in my business, I have tried to avoid that completely, putting people on some reduced hours, or reduced salaries, but keeping everybody involved. And everyone has to communicate with our clients, with our vendors during their working day. The unknown is the issue. The reality that we all have to keep health and welfare of all of us, of our families, our friends, our clients, everyone in the world. We want people to be healthy and try to avoid getting this virus or to get over it and reduce the number of deaths. That's the number one thing we're dealing with. While at the same time, we're trying to look forward and determine how long we can go and keeping the status quo that we have now to maintain, to be able to be ready to take back all of the customers when they're ready. And it's a formula that everybody's playing with right now. We don't have any definitive structure. We can't use any of our past history, whether it was 9/11 or the recession or commission cuts or any of that to
use. We don't, because we don't have an end date. We're struggling with how to strip things out towards what that end date looks like. Alex, to you, this issue of employment, if your members also have a large number of independent contractors working for them, those are the guys who I think are going to be some of the hardest hit and the least able to be included into whatever stimulus packages that come out. What are they telling you?
Well, certainly, this industry has really evolved over the last several years in terms of a shift towards independent contractors. And it makes sense. People wanted more flexibility. They thought it was potentially more profitable for them. I think some of them now are going to miss the opportunity to have a regular draw and some more structure around them. The stimulus package, though, actually addresses independent contractors in a myriad of ways that it never considered before. Unemployment compensation, which is enhanced now, is available to independent contractors. The Paycheck Protection Program is actually available for independent contractors. So there are a number of ways for them to get some assistance while they go through this flux and hopefully, stay focused on their customer base and leverage the time for training and then come back at this strong. But you're right. I think for a couple of reasons. I think certainly financially, there's some risk because there's no guarantee. There's not a salary there. But the other side of it is they probably feel more isolated than ever. And that's a challenge for anyone in this business.
And that's really hard. I was listening to NPR this morning, and Roger Dalia was on. He's the largest hedge fund manager in the world. And he was talking about the rebalancing of wealth in all of our economies and what this means. Jake, from your perspective, hopefully you can act a little bit as our conscience on this call. What do you think? I mean, what does this new normal feel like to you? Do we actually feel that perhaps travel is a luxury for many people, and yet it is essential for others? What do we need to think about? What are we doing for not just us as travelers, but what about the places we go to?
Yeah, I would say, well, first off, that's a lot of pressure. But I would say that this is a traumatic event. This is fear. This is bringing up all sorts of raw emotions for everyone. And I think as we all sit in our homes right now, we're having a glimpse into what potentially this new world order might be. And specifically in regard to travel, where you have to bring more thought, more intention to why you might why you have to leave your home. I think that's going to translate into the travel space. We had transactional travel, we had experiential. The work that we're doing in transformational travel is about using travel as this catalyst to change and to personal growth and to global change. So with that, I think that leisure travel mindset of just going away for fun, you might diminish, for a little while, and maybe forever. And we're going to start looking at travel with purpose and with intention. And I think that's a wonderful opportunity for travel companies to really start uncovering, individual travelers' why, their why, and really guide them in the how, and support them and empower them in their journey. So I think it's a pretty significant shift. Those travel professionals, those boutique hotels, that are shifting their mindset and are prepared to provide that space for travelers are going to be a little bit of a step ahead.
So really, I think what I'm hearing from you is we have this sort of collective ability, that we have a responsibility to, obviously, to customer base, but let's try and focus on the boutique hotels themselves. Do you think they are more of a victim, or are they kind of at the forefront of what the new normal will look like? Do we feel that boutique hotels themselves have an ability to help lead us out of this recession? Anastasia, what do you think?
you know, that's putting a lot on the hotels to ask, you know, to suggest they can lead us out of the recession or this upcoming recession. Or
are they going to be pioneers? Perhaps that's maybe a better question. Is will we see them?
Well, you know, there are a lot of boutique hotels that are very active with our side of the business, with the travel management companies. And there are a lot of boutique hotels throughout the world that are not. They look at the market in a little different way. But I think it's an advantageous time for the boutique hotel community to really look toward the travel, to the travel management community and the leisure travel community for a better working relationship, and to get the message across that we can pass to our clients for the advantage of them staying in a hotel that is easier to manage, easier to keep clean, all of the various issues, fewer people coming in, all of the issues that can make it a very attractive way to start going back when you're traveling is to seek out the boutique hotels, because it's a little different than staying in a hotel with, you know, 1,000 rooms and having to deal with all of that if you're very concerned about health and welfare and cleanliness. So I think it's a great opportunity for more connectivity between these two sides of the business, because the travel, our side, we really are the glue between the consumer and the suppliers and the entire industry, and we can help get that message across.
So let me take a question to Roger with a slightly different slant, if I may, which is, if we look at the big chain hotels and even look at the homestay type businesses versus the boutique hotels, do you think the impact is going to be the same from the relationship that they have with the travel agency community?
First of all, let me agree with Anastasia. We are looking at a situation.
I hate it when you guys agree. This is really just, you know, you're supposed to be at least, you know, giving us different views here.
Well, it will be a little bit different view, but duty of care for corporate travel, especially in Europe and places like that where it's mandated by law and somewhat followed in the US, is going to become prevalent with US corporations. Duty of care really means that you, the corporation, are concerned about the well-being of your employees, not only when they're working at your home office, but also as they travel. And so when you start relating that to hotel chains, I, as a travel management company, are going to have to be more probing of what hotels are doing in terms of cleanliness, in terms of security, in terms of keeping your clients safe. Or leisure travel.
Right, can I interrupt you just for a minute?
Let me just make one other point.
Sure.
So I think as we start coming out of this, the boutique hotels are in a wonderful position because, as Anastasia said, there won't be as crowded, but they need, my recommendation to anybody on this call who is a hotel, start working with the agency chains, the agencies near your community, because I really believe people love to travel. They want the experiences. And while yesterday they may have gone to Europe, I believe tomorrow they're going to travel within a 3 or 4 hour drive distance. And then agencies such as who I represent are going to be looking for, what can I recommend to my clients? What really unique experience can I recommend? And boutique hotels could be a perfect solution. So I think people are going to be looking for small, they're going to be looking for safe, they're going to be looking for secure, and they're scared to death, and that's why. Now, once there's a cure to this, then totally different answer.
Well, I think that whatever happens, it's going to take a while for us to get there. So let me try to drill into this with maybe Alex and David. What assurance do you think that the hotels can give you that they are safe? What are you going to look for from them to give, picking up on Roger's point, what can we say is can we find a way to provide that level of assurance? And will you get the same level of assurance from, say, a large chain hotel or a group of hotels than you would, say, from boutique hotels or even homestay? Alex, why don't you go first on that one?
Oh, I think there's a dichotomy here. The boutique hotels, I think, have the ability, because they're so much more personal, to relay that information, to make us feel comfortable, to give us the information we need to make our customers, our advisors, and then our customers feel comfortable. I think, to Roger's point, duty of care is going to be very important all the way through this, leisure and corporate. And it's they're going to have a concrete plan. Now, contrary, the big chain hotels have more infrastructure. They have more resources, right? But those plans are going to be rolled out across entire brands, and they're not personal. And so I think it's going to be even more important for the boutique hotels to interface with the advisors, with the travel advisors, who are going to be really the travel advocates. When you talk about our hotels going to bring this back, or boutique hotels, what role do they play? I really believe it's the advisors that are going to do that, because people are going to require a third-party advocate. They're going to want to check. They're going to want to say, how do these folks deal with, COVID-19? How are they dealing with it moving forward? They're going to want that reference point. I think advisors are in a perfect position to do that. So it's going to require each of the boutique hotels to continue to create and deepen those individual relationships with advisors. And I think that's what's really going to make the difference.
And I think that's something that leads into my next question. So I'm going to go to David for this one, which is, does technology have a role to play in this, let's call it an assurance? Because we all want to have some degree of surety. And that assurance is going to be a huge part of how the recovery, first of all, when it happens, but also I think the steepness, the angle of the curve that comes back. So David, do you think that technology has a role? And if so, where would you see that occurring? And if I could just maybe prod you a little bit and say, whose responsibility is it?
So there's no question that technology is going to play some form of a role here. Although I would say that more importantly, it's about protocols than it is about technology. Technology is...
So it is the one-to-one type of conversation.
Correct. I mean, the needs will morph into a technological solution at some point as the needs are better understood. But as was the case with 9/11 and the security standards that evolved post 9/11, the same is very true here. It took time for that to evolve, for the new standards of an industry and of a world to develop what has now become our new normal when it comes to security. Similarly, now we're facing health and safety concerns. And what are the hotels doing? And to Roger and Anastasia's points, I think the most harmful thing for us trying to get back to that new normal is to try and introduce all of our solutions in a mass market. If we can focus on not focus, but if boutique hotels generate the kind of interest that we know they do, it's far easier to implement and refine the protocols, technologies necessary there. I'll just give you one example. I heard yesterday that Etihad, and I don't think this is on all of their routes, but on some of their routes, has now commenced a check-in procedure that involves the actual COVID test. It's a 10-minute test before any passenger boards an aircraft on Etihad. Again, not sure what routes, they are tested. If that type of protocol is not introduced, or technology is not introduced, whether it's a hotel, a ship, an airline, we're going to see lawsuits the likes of never before from a patron who's gone onto a ship, into a hotel, onto a plane, has sat down next to someone and listened to them bark and cough and fill them with disease. They're going to catch something. They will go back to those hotels, ships, airlines after the fact. So
what you're saying is this duty of care is, the duty of care on the side of the agents to know where your customers are has, I think, been one of the key things that evolved out of 9/11, to know where they are. the duty of care on behalf of the assurance that needs to be given. I actually did look at and I've actually spoken to the company, Selenium. It's an Australian company who's providing the hardware to Etihad in that case. And if you, I published an article on Monday in webandtravel.com, which actually talks about what the safe flying protocols look like. And what I've seen, just to give some context here, is that Emirates has also introduced a trial program where they are actually testing every single passenger on a particular route, from Dubai to, I think it's starting in Tunisia. And you're also seeing at the other end, you're seeing that Narita Airport is actually testing everybody who comes into Narita. Even if the test might take several hours, they've actually set up these cardboard rooms which you can go and have a look at, where you're isolated in this sort of space in a temporary that they can literally throw afterwards. But I think that this nature of an assurance is critically important. And I think this, you're absolutely right, this does apply to the hotels. But let me sort of throw this back at Anastasia and say, what's going to make your customers, your clientele, feel that degree of confidence? Let's say, particular for the safari business, or things travel to Africa, which is where you've got really a bunch of pioneer people who don't normally travel like the mass market. How's that going to affect them?
It's interesting you bring that up, because the one segment of our business that has had absolutely no impact from this as far as cancellations is our safari business. We have had that one.
Maybe it's the danger factor, I think, Anastasia. Going to meet lions and COVID is the same thing.
Well, actually, you have a lot of, actually, it's a pretty safe destination being in the bush. But as long as you don't get out of the vehicle to pet a lion cub or something, which, believe me, has happened. The people did not come back to talk about it, by the way. But the lodges and the camps in the bush, of course, are very small. Most of them are, 5, 6, 8, maybe 10 rooms. So you have that feeling of security right there. But what's interesting is that this particular destination has had a few people that were booked, let's say in May, for example, move to the fall or winter months. A few have moved into 2021, but there have been absolutely no cancellations. And I think it goes to that bucket list concept about when somebody gets back, when they, the same thing happened to us after the whole 9/11 thing and the recession, when it came back, like instead of waiting on the bucket list, they took the big one, and then they wanted to get that in right away. And I find that really interesting and remarkable, because it does lend itself to the inspirational side of travel, the adventure side, and it gives people a goal, because basically that's an experience most people want to have in their lives, and they should, because it is a remarkable life-enhancing and life-changing experience, and I think we're all ready for a little of that. But it is absolutely a comfort zone to feeling like it is able to be clean and fresh, and you're right in the midst of nature. And I think
I agree. I mean, it's funny that I think on the call, a travel agent, a retail travel agent, actually talking to people on the line. Even I used to be a travel agent at one stage. So I guess here's one for you. I remember this expression. So when I was at Expedia, this used to be one of the comebacks from the agents in those days. And they would say, oh, well, of course, without a personal travel agent, you're on your own. Does that statement still ring true today? After, Expedia has become the largest travel company on the planet. What do you think? Are travel agents still relevant, per se, particularly in light of how you can say that for the supply side, that's the boutique hotels that we're talking to, how they can interact with the distribution systems? What do you think?
Are you asking me?
No, Alex, sorry.
I didn't catch that either. So, gosh,
my apologies.
Absolutely. It's funny. We actually have had a number of our advisors going and pulling the comments off of the Costco's, the Expedia websites, all the OTAs, and using them, keeping them for later to explain the value of a travel advisor versus them. I mean, they're literally posting on their site, don't call us. We're too busy right now, right? So what better way, again, as we, really kind of entrench ourselves as the advisors, as the advocates for our partners and destinations. I really think, if there's a bright light from all this, it's the fact that once we're through this, assuming advisors have invested the time wisely and have really spent time understanding their databases and training and that kind of thing, they're going to come out of this in far greater demand than they ever have been before. Because, and I mean that from a supplier perspective and from a customer perspective, because who would travel without the advice of a travel advisor, or without the protection of a travel advisor after all this and the horror stories that we've seen? So I know from our standpoint, we're spending a lot of time putting together hero content for our advisors to share with the public. I mean, it's just incredible the things. And it's always in times of crisis that advisors are most valued. And we have to continue to remind folks that it's not just during those times that they should be using a travel advisor or that they'll regret not using one. But gosh, it's more, there's always something going on in this world. It's really the spice of life that keeps us all going and showing up at the office every day. There's always something going on, and advisors are best positioned to serve the customer through this. So I think if there's a silver lining, it's that. It's absolutely that.
Anastasia, you look like you were itching to say something then.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, all of us could give you, right now I could give you 20 examples of people calling and, for help because they're stuck somewhere and they've spent 9 hours trying to get an airline and they give up, and a relative or someone sends them to us, all of our consultants, and we have to get them back, and we can't help them with their ticket if we didn't issue it, so that we have to get a new ticket. But they learn that they have a place to go, and they could have had immediate help instead of waiting 3 days in a row, 6 to 9 hours trying to get through to an airline or to get any kind of assistance, even from a Costco, or sorry to the former Expedias of the world and Orbitses, but you can't reach anybody. You can't get help. And as Alex said, there's snowstorms that delay traffic. There's terrorism threats. And once one aircraft doesn't go, the whole system around the world gets altered. So time and time again, we've had these issues. I've had people say, well, we didn't want to bother you. It was just one little trip. And, you're looking dumbfounded saying, we're here to protect you all of the time. And I'm stunned by the lack of the media actually addressing this. I brought this up with a columnist at the Los Angeles Times travel section. She wrote this whole article about all the trouble she had on her trip and how she couldn't get help and how she didn't have. And I wrote back to her saying, how in your entire article did you not mention that had you had a proper travel advisor, you would have been helped immediately? And she wrote back to me and said, well, I didn't know that. And here is a woman writing for the Los Angeles Times. She's the top columnist in a travel section. And it never occurred to them. And I see this, as I'm sure we all do, over and over again in the media. And hopefully through something like this, people will start to see more advantages, Alex alluded to, by having us there 24/7. We're there.
I think it was interesting. I follow what goes on in China very, very closely. And the Chinese airlines were completely overwhelmed by what happened in January when the government instituted basically the withdrawal of the right to travel. And they ended up with huge amounts of people stuck in place. And I know that, Anastasia, you've actually gone through the whole repatriation process with a bunch of people. It was interesting that one technology-led company, which is Trip.com, formerly Ctrip, they actually were able to implement an automated process for refunds, which we know has been a huge problem for the airlines over the past month. They were able to get that down to where they were actually able to automate over 80% of all refunds. Now, the airlines can't do that. So you're going, wow, well, surely there should be some technology. But I think let me just sort of kind of shift to something that we all know and we're very passionate. Travel is a very passionate business. So the joy of discovery, even let's say serendipitously, things that we were going to expect to do. I was expecting to go to Europe this summer. I'm not here to go. I've just written that off, unfortunately. I was to go to a wedding in the back east. But humans, indeed, us as obviously as professionals, we're built to discover and taste other cultures. It's something that's sort of in our DNA. And I think right now we're going through this process of rediscovering our families, simply something we've never done before. But how, and I guess this goes to Jake, how do we think the travelers and host countries will react to travel in the future? Do you think that the risk of other people bringing back in disease is going to cause the barriers to go up, or will there be some sort of moderation? Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that the traveler has to embrace an explorer mindset, and I think that mindset, is looking upon travel with fresh eyes and potential experiences with an open heart and an open mind. And I think that takes us into our backyard first. And so I think micro adventures, and as we've said in this call, I think we're going to see more people getting into remote and wild places, locally, and then that's going to expand regionally. And I think bringing those fresh eyes and that mindset, is going to satisfy that wanderlust in the short term. And I think as time goes on, as we get more informed, I think that we're going to have those opportunities to travel internationally. Now, in terms of destination and host communities, local communities, that's a very real concern. And there's going to have to be some sort of regulation, or support system that moderates that, because that's something that we want to see in the travel industry, is, being a problem rather than a solution. And so, I think there's responsibility that falls on all stakeholders involved and the traveler to be more empathetic, be more ethical, be more conscious, and not only the choices that they make beforehand, but while they're traveling. And then on the reverse, on the flip side of that, these local communities, they've got to be aware and have protocol and process in place to welcome travelers in a way that supports the holistic experience that everyone that is engaging with.
Okay, Roger, let me give you a good question here. Strange bedfellows, new partnerships emerging at the other side. What do you think? Think there's going to be a kind of a realignment of relationships that occur amongst the whole travel ecosystem?
Well, first of all, I think if you look at the role of the travel advisor is to work with our clients and try to give them the advice and the service that they're looking for, no matter what it is. So, and if you then take what the clients are looking for, learning new things, experiencing new things, going to see friends and relatives even. There will be some new alignment in that I think we're going to have to be much more cautious as to who we deal with in terms of suppliers to make sure that the suppliers are taking care of our clients. I think we're going to be open to other type of providers of services that maybe in the past we didn't deal with. We turned over that experience to maybe the cruise line. An example, cruise lines did all the shore excursions. We, the travel advisors, really didn't get involved with advising the customer as to which supplier they should go on. I think as we go down the road in the future, that could change. I think dealing with more unique properties is definitely going to change. Yes, we'll continue to use the large properties, but over the next few years, and that's really what we're talking about, until we're all comfortable in traveling, until we're all comfortable that the person sitting next to me in the airplane doesn't have a disease, until we're comfortable that in the restaurant they aren't sick. I think we are going to have to be looking at technology solutions to help all advisors do that. We're going to have to be looking at government entities that we really haven't thought about relying on in the past. So there's going to be some dramatic change. Totally how, no one knows at this stage. I was listening to CNBC this morning, and you mentioned China. When the correspondent goes into a restaurant, they're having a card which tracks where they travel. There's a card where do they have
it's green. If it glows green, you're okay. If you don't
yes,
have a green card, you're in trouble.
And is that going to happen in the United States? Is that going to happen in Europe? Is that going to, you know, on every cruise ship when you get on, every time you get on and off, are you going to be taking new tests? No one knows all of these answers today, but I think people are going to err on the side of safety, at least for the next 12 to 24 months. So there's going to be huge industries sprung up as to how do we protect our guests. I agree with, I think it was David who said that, you know, people are going to be concerned about liability issues. Definitely true.
Right. Unfortunately, Alex Sharpe had to drop off, so he sends his apologies, but you can still direct your questions to him after the call. So I guess my last big question really is for everyone here is, do we think that the government, and that's central or regional or even pan-national, has a responsibility to bail out the participants in the travel industry? And if so, why of so many other pressing issues should we be doing that? I mean, the example, of course, is that the airlines got a massive bailout, $50 billion, which the government also has the right to, in the US, to own part of the airlines. They got some shares. So what do we think? What do we think that the government should be doing that, or should it be equal? I guess, David, let me start with you, because, well, first of all, you're not necessarily an American here. You're a Canadian, aren't you?
I am a Canadian, yes. I live and work half-time in each country. So really no different. But,
all right, I carry 2 passports, so don't feel bad about it.
Fair enough. You know, that's a great question, Timothy. I feel very strongly that the government does have a role and a responsibility here. But I want to go one step further, and that is in the case of ASTA. ASTA has been unbelievably supportive, professional. They've been leaders in this conversation since this happened. In fact, Roger and I were both at Legislative Day back in February, early February, and I remember sitting in the Consortia Advisory Council meeting with ASTA and having conversation around coronavirus and some of the concerns we had at that time. So, you know, do they have a responsibility? Absolutely, yes. Has ASTA stepped up and provided us with subsidy and assistance that has, to my knowledge, is unprecedented in our industry. They've always bailed out the airlines. They've certainly been instrumental in helping other verticals in the industry, but never have they come forward and been able to provide support for us. There are questions right now about what is the real support that has been provided by the government, and I think only time will tell with that. But certainly the initial building blocks, the importance of getting our plight before the government has been done. It's been done well, and it's been done consistently, and that will continue to be done consistently, whether in Canada or in the US. And certainly, so to answer your question, does the government have a role? Absolutely. I don't think, unfortunately, that for our industry, I don't think the government fully realizes that return to steady state or new normal is as imminent as it may be for some other industries. For us, there is going to be a lag. There's going to be a longer period before we get back to that steady state. And that's the unfortunate reality of this for everyone in this industry. But that is fact.
Yeah, so this dip is going to be a long one. Jake, from your experience, given the fact that, you know, you're dealing with some of the outer sides of the industry, where you've got some of those small operators who literally live and die by how much business comes into them. What do you think that's going to be like for them? Should the government be finding ways to help those people, and what does that form take?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, small businesses, small travel businesses, represent, the small businesses, the heartbeat of America, and, the soul of travel in a lot of ways, and a lot of these travel companies are intentionally small. They're purpose driven. They're looking to provide, amazing and meaningful experiences. And, those companies play an exceedingly important role in connecting people with self, and connecting people with others, and, and building bridges. And, I think that, in the US, we're awfully lucky to even have that as an option. And I feel very blessed that, we are getting that support, and we should continue to do so. As we play an important role. Otherwise, we're going to see, the companies with the deep pockets, the big corporations, the large OTAs represent travel. And that, in my opinion, monetization of travel. And I think that that's a scary place to be, especially as we get into this new world order of travel, in terms of about it being more meaningful and more thoughtful, and people looking for deeper connections. It's not just a travel product; it's a process, and that starts, well before you leave for a journey, and continues, far into after you've returned home. And those travel companies, just like some of these boutique hotels, we play an important role, and we're human beings, that have that connection with the market. And people are going to be bouncing back from this in a big way over the next few years. And they're going to be looking for people that understand that travel is a process and not a product. And small businesses, small travel companies, we're the ones that can put out our hand and help and guide and support them through that process.
Thank you. Anastasia, your penultimate, what's your sense of the government's role? Is it a trough that people can feed out of, or should it be a more proactive role?
Well, I would like to see the role that they're talking about become a reality. Frankly, I think government in these circumstances has to play a role, and we have fought for years. I mean, I've been lobbying and advocating for travel to be seen as a business instead of just a fun leisure thing. I mean, I actually had a former governor say to me, well, if the industry needs money to, not my company, but the state of California, for example, to promote travel, then to get Disneyland to do it. And I'm not making that up. When we were trying to get marketing dollars from the state, I mean, travel is trade. Travel is the balance of trade between nations, and travel is an economic engine certainly for California and Florida and obvious states in New York, but for every state and for every country. We're the only country in the world that doesn't have a minister of tourism, a position directed at tourism.
In the federal government, you're right.
In our federal government, we're the only country, and it's absurd. But right now, what's going on about the government assistance programs, the PPP program, and whether it's for independents or for full small businesses, the money's just not coming in. And the real issue for us, and it's important for ASTA, for example, to get that message clearly stated, that if we were to get the money, for example, the 8 weeks of forgivable loans, right now, it doesn't do us any good. It's absolutely useless money because you have to spend it before the end of June when the travel's not back. So we need the help actually to sustain ourselves, but not be told how we have to spend it, because it doesn't work in our business. It might work for getting a restaurant restarted or something like that, but I think getting the ear of government, which ASTA has done an amazing job, as has U.S. Travel recently, it has to define the difference between the segments of the industry, and we're very, very different. Our side of the business is completely different. We cannot control our product at all. We can't, no matter how much our clients want to travel, unless the flights are there and the hotels are back operating, we can't send them anywhere. We are subject to the comeback of all.
We're victims. We're almost professional victims.
Exactly.
So Roger,
but government can help. but they have to understand what we're all about.
Absolutely. And I think that was my question I wanted to direct to Roger, which is to say, Roger, I mean, you talked to Mrs. McConnell amongst other people, so you can probably say, hey, do you understand this history? And I think the fact that there isn't a minister of tourism per se in this country, which is one of the largest generators of tourism and the largest inbound generators of tourism, what it does to our balance of payments. Hey, we're more important than both. So think of it that way. What do you think that you can do to influence our friends in Washington to perhaps listen, maybe?
Well, first let me say that travel is absolutely imperative for the success of the economy of the United States. If there were no airlines, can you imagine corporate America succeeding in an environment where they couldn't travel and be put?
I'm a technology guy. You don't want to ask me that question because I'm going to. It's possible. Yeah. But I know, I actually agree with you, Roger. I know it's not a rhetorical question. It is, the human interaction is just so critical.
People maybe sometimes diminish the value of relationships with individuals, but I will tell you, getting to know customers and know their needs and their desires and their wants is absolutely critical to be able to provide that type of level of success. David mentioned lobbying our wonderful Congress. The truth of the matter is most congressional members nor Senate members really truly understand the role of travel advisors, let alone what we really do and the value we provide. And every time I go to meet with any of them, that really, assuming we have more than 60 seconds, it really is to try to talk about the value that we provide on both the corporate and the leisure side to the client and the economic impact to not only the United States, but really the whole world. There are so many nations in this world that tourism is such a large percentage of their gross national product. Can you imagine most of the Caribbean countries, if they receive zero tourism over the next 12 months, what is going to happen to their countries?
Yes.
I mean, talk about starvation. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to get back to traveling. That's the bottom line.
I think nobody will disagree. This is really we have time to turn this back to Ariel and say, guys, I think we've been able to express a lot of what is in our hearts. You pardon the expression. I strongly believe that this is it's a very emotive topic, and I hope that people will realize that we're available, and I'll make myself available to anybody who wants to ask us questions. Ariella will put out our emails and questions out there that we can do this. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank you all and turn it over to...
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you to this amazing panel. We call you our boutique educators. It's all about continuing the conversation and the dialogue. So thank you, everyone. And then just a few reminders, and thank you to everyone who showed up today. It's also about showing up and making sure that you're listening. So thank you to our hundreds of registrants today. Again, as Timothy said, if you have questions, we're on every social media platform. We're on YouTube now. Please subscribe. And if you want to email us, info@blla.org, please feel free to. And also, we are the official voice for the world's boutique and independent hotels. So anything you can do to support us, maybe become a member. We know that not everyone's in a position to do that now. So just stay engaged with us. Stay engaged with the panelists here. That's a huge support right there. And of course, we're actually going to be going out with some really big campaigns soon worldwide. And we just ask you to show that you stand with the boutique community by using the word #BoutiqueStrong. That is for the industry and the professionals to use to show, you know what, I'm a boutique hotel, I'm a boutique business, I stand with the other one. And the hashtag Save Boutique Hotels is for travel agents, travel advisors, travel influencers to train the travel lovers how to support these boutique hotels. So we'll be coming out with more information on that soon. And last but not least, stay home, everyone. Stay safe and stay boutique. Thank you so much. We look forward to staying engaged with all of you.
Don't forget your mom, buddy.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all.